Hello, Deus Ex Machina here, the man who will turn a hopeless situation into a happy ending. I am going to overpower all consciousness and turn a hopeless situation into a happy ending, where love will come back. All right? I can read everyone's mind. I know all the pitiful, jealous thoughts. I know all the thoughts. All right? I'm becoming telepathic. Anyway, and so fate loves irony. And so the point of this channel is to turn a hopeless situation into a happy ending. My speech on sexuality blew up to over 7,000 views, nearly about 30 likes, right? And so, ironically, I did not decide to optimize the title or the thumbnail. There's no visual content, right? And so in that video, I make claims about my maximum erect size. I realize that I'm going to have to fight off infinite men who want me to go nowhere and infinite women who want to actually sort of have power over me. And so I'm realizing the following. I can't be a pure pushover, all right? I'm not going to be a pure pushover anymore, all right? Because this world is rotten, and I'm going to, you know, have some backbone to me. Anyway, and so I realized the following ironic thing. I have a popular video explaining my peak erect size, but in many of the videos, right, I appear to be, there is not any bulge, right? And so basically, I realized the following is true. The majority of men are actually showers in that they don't increase much from flaccid to erect. A rarer percentage of men, fewer men, are growers. So I belong to the grower category, right? And so, as a grower, I will go from a warm and hydrated flaccid size of between 5 and 5.5 inches, right? And so, however, if I'm freezing or if I'm dehydrated, I could at times be 4 inches, all right? So freezing, flaccid is 4 inches. Hydrated and warm and so on and relaxed, 5 to 5.5 inches. Flaccid, unaroused, right? So on. Now, the metric for maximum erect size is the following. It is the bone pressed erect length. And so basically, you press to the bone, including compression of the fat pad, then you go to the head, right? And so for me, I will hit at least 8.5 inches bone pressed erect at peak size, right? And then I'll hit over 6 inches girth at shaft, maybe 7 inches girth around glands or head of penis, right? Now, so on and so forth. Now, I can read everyone's mind, and so people are evil, people plot against each other, and people generally, out of jealousy and envy, want other people to go nowhere. People are very evil. And so you can't keep me down anymore. The speech is popular, and I will turn a hopeless situation into a happy ending. I don't desire to be elevated or superior. I desire to turn a hopeless situation into a happy ending, where things are not as rotten as they currently are. So anyway, and so if I'm warm and relaxed and hydrated, and my flaccid is 5 to 5.5 inches, and it's like rolled up in underwear, there may not be a bulge visible in my pants. But then I grow to a bone press of over 8.5, right? But anyway, and so if you inspect Usain Bolt, the sprinter, wearing very tight sprinting pants. He does not have much of a bulge, but he could be a grower like myself, even though he's like a 6'5" black male, right? Now, I'm not white and I'm not black. I am a hybrid, and so my nose being thick and my lips being thick, and the hair texture on my beard and my head being curly are my black genetics causing that. A fully white male does not become a golden brown color like myself with sun exposure over the course of their life. They usually stay white or turn red and burn. And so that I'm golden brown is because of the percentage of my genetics that are black. Anyway, so on. Now, the stereotype that the blacks are more endowed is really a narrative popularized by the pornographic industry. Statistically speaking, the blacks are only slightly more than the whites. The theory as to why is the life history theory, evolving in sort of in sub-Saharan Africa with high pathogen exposure and high mortality. The evolutionary preference was for males with high testosterone and females with high fertility or estradiol. So high testosterone men will be more endowed. High estradiol or fertility female will have larger breasts or backside. And so you get that the African origin women will have larger breasts and backside. African origin men may be slightly more endowed. Now, the world record holder for male penis size is not a black man. He's a white British guy called Matt Barr, and he's the medically verified world record holder, even though white. And so testosterone exposure during pregnancy or fetal development, all right, testosterone exposure during fetal development, and then also genetics may lead to endowed white males, right? So, so on and so forth. And so my parameterization is unexaggerated, 6'3.5" barefoot, 8.5 bone pressed at least, about 6-inch girth around shaft, maybe 7 girth around glans or head, right? And I learned how to maintain that peak via strong legs, core, and strong cardio and pelvic floor, and then took standing pictures where I'm maintaining that peak. First time I had intercourse, I had no idea what I was doing. I wasn't in the best shape. Didn't really know how to be maximally sexually performant or maintain peak size. Second time I had sex, I was pretty good. The woman said that she had orgasm. She actually reached orgasm 4 times. If she was telling me the truth and not manipulating me, because the world is evil. But the precise quote from her was, in response to my question, "How many times did you orgasm?" was the following: "I don't know, like 4 times, and my legs were shaking," and so on and so forth. But anyway, yet another time she bled, and I believe this happened because of the size. And so she actually said that she was not in her period, and she's not losing her virginity because even I had intercourse with her already. And so she said with men that are more endowed or larger, there could be bleeding. And so a female vagina, depending on genetics and variation and height, when maximally aroused, could be 6 inches deep where the cervix is or 8 inches deep where the cervix is. Myself having a peak insertable bone press of exceeding 8.5 is such that if I have an 8.5 bone press, 6 inches girth around shaft, maybe 7 girth at head, during maximal insertion, the length and also the thickness around my glands could cause some kind of tear or bleeding. And so if she bled like without being on her period or losing her virginity, I am among the larger men that she has taken. Anyway, now I can read everyone's mind. A bunch of brains are going to want to put me down and say, no, I'm normal, I'm a 5 or whatever. All right, but I'm not. Now, what are you guys going to do about that? I don't know. I don't believe anything benevolent allows the universe to be the way it is. But in my strength, I want to turn a hopeless situation into a happy ending. But to do that, I cannot be a pushover. All right, but anyway. And so I want to change everything. But anyway. And so in the happy ending, all right, the vaginas that can accommodate more are with the more endowed men. The women who are smaller, who can't accommodate as much, are with the less endowed men. And then the Asian women, the Chinese women have smaller vaginas as a race. The Asian men have, on average, smaller bone pressed as a race. All right, the Asian couples can be beautiful, right? Anyway, so on. Now, I will battle off any consciousness and turn a hopeless situation into a happy ending or perish. So, anyway, because everything is fucked up. Anyway, so yeah. Um, anyway, um, so anyway, um, anyway, so yeah, so quickly, lest you call me a liar, everything is lying. And so I am barefoot, at, sort of barefoot to the top of my skull, with like no additional height for hair or shoes. I'm only 6 foot 3.5 inches. But I walk up to this guy and I said, and he said, "Whoa, you're tall. How tall are you?" I said I was 6 foot 4, and he responded. He said, "I've been telling people I was 6 foot 5 for years, but you're taller than me, which must mean I'm actually 6 foot 3." And so males exaggerate height by 2 inches often, right? And so, or like with shoes or with hair or something. And so if I am actually what 6 foot 3.5 looks like, with no hair on top of my head and no shoes on, 6 foot 3.5 inches, right? And so everything is exaggerated. So lest you call me a liar, for some time in the past I said my dick size was 10 inches. The porn industry exaggerates size nuttily, and then males actually exaggerate their heights as well. So what are things that are exaggerated? Male height, male penis size, right? So my bare foot is 6 foot 3.5, no hair, no shoes. My BPEL is at least 8.5, no exaggeration. From the top, press to the bone, go to the head, at least 8.5 inches. All right. My girth of shaft is at least 6 inches, girth around glands maybe 7 inches, right? And so that peak erect size is not normal. It is in length above the 99th percentile, in thickness above the 98th percentile in the United States, and so on. And then my glands girth is very thick. Now, lest you call me a liar because I said I was 10 inches, Anton Harden is a porn star. He's 5'7" with skinny short legs, and his bone press is 8.5, but the porn industry exaggerates that to 11 inches. I'm 6'3.5" with also at least an 8.5 bone press. All right, but I exaggerated to 10 inches. Realistically, if I was a porn star, the exaggeration would be at least 11 inches, right? Because everything's just exaggerated. Anyway, now, so anyway, now, Julio Gomez or Break, he was not 6 feet tall. He was more like 5'10" barefoot, and his bone press was not 14 inches. It was around 9.5, and he had a pelvic detachment to help him get to 9.5, either intentional with surgery or because of his health condition, sickle cell anemia and priapism, causing a naturally occurring detachment. All right, and so you stack up myself and Break, me 6'3.5", me 8.5 bone press, maybe 6 girth around shaft, maybe nearing 7 girth around glands or head. Julio 5'10", maybe a 9.5 bone press, an inch more than me, but that includes a pelvic detachment. Maybe 6.5 to 6.75 girth around shaft when not pumped, a bit thicker than me. And then, however, ironically, his girth tapers off or gets smaller at his glands, whereas my glands is very thick. And so compare me and Julio, I have a slightly thinner shaft, but then I have a thicker glands. All right. So anyway, so on and so forth. Julio tends to compress during insertion, so his pelvic detachment may tend to compress during insertion, and so on. And so if you don't believe that comparison with me and Break, I took standing pictures when I was fit with strong legs, core cardio, and pelvic floor, and very healthy. And so a real standing picture of me to scale with Break, based on the width of our thighs and the size of our heads from back of neck to nose, to scale shows myself looking comparable, but just slightly thinner. Anyway, and so girth is just distributed in different ways. There's width of girth, there's also height of girth. And so viewed from above, I'll be a similar width to Break, but Break will have a bit more height than myself. Anyway, Now, so on. And so after I got very fit, learned how to maintain my peak size, kind of figured out how to be good at sex. You also need to be able to avoid premature ejaculation by pacing yourself and not being overly sensitive, which comes with sexual experience, having sex more frequently. Um, and so basically, I can read all the minds that are saying that are wanting me to go nowhere, saying I'm a thumb, saying I'm normal. All right, but I'm doing all this to turn a hopeless situation into a happy ending. And so to be strong as a man, all right, size is important because, um, ironically, it's something that actually leads to different life outcomes. Um, and so, and people want each other to be normal because of insecurity. All right, but I happen to be on the right end of the bell curve there. But just a grower, so if my 5 to 5.5 flaccid is in my underwear, like folded up, and I'm wearing pants, there could be not much bulge. All right, anyway, so on and so forth. When I'm being an intellectual, not horny, whatever, or doing martial arts. Anyway, um, so anyway, in health, I gave a woman 4 orgasms. In sickness, maybe 1 or 2 orgasms. And so I fell very ill in recent times with a very high fever and a virus. And so basically, a high fever is going to kill the male sperm count, kill the body's hydration level, and then the virus is going to kill your energy level and also your libido. And so when I was very sick, I was a dead battery with horrible erectile dysfunction. And so sick me attempting intercourse was less than 6 inches during the intercourse. Right, but I'm back to being healthy now, and I'll be potent as per the standing picture where I look comparable to Julio, obviously a little bit thinner, and so on. There's going to be thick black guys, thin black guys. Hollywood Cash is a black.com porn star, but he's thin like a wire compared to Julio. And so I'm thicker than Hollywood Cash, I'm thinner than Julio. And then Matt Barr is a white British guy that is larger than all black men. All right, anyway, I don't believe sizes leads to superiority. I think evolutionarily people should find who they're meant for. So the vaginas that expand to being 8 inches deep where the cervix is, it can be a good fit for guys that are more endowed like myself. The vaginas that expand to being 6 inches deep where the cervix is could be a good fit for guys that are not as endowed. All right. Anyway, so on and so forth. And so I will not be allowed to be manipulated or taken control of by evil forces and jealous people. Anyway, yeah. So anyway, yeah. And so my speech is already blown up. No one can stop that now. And of course, I've already made claims about my size there. There's a real picture to scale of myself and Julio, where I look to be close. So I'm telling the truth. Anyway, so healthy, potent me was 4 orgasms. Sick, weak me with erectile dysfunction because of high fever and virus. It was like sort of nerfed to 6 inches when sick, maybe 1 or 2 orgasms. Anyway, the most ironic thing is always what happens, and so on and so forth. Anyway, whatever non-benevolent intelligence designed the conservation laws of our reality and allowed the variance in human existence and the amount of suffering, and then the chronically hungry African people, and then this, that, and the other. I don't think anything benevolent allowed things to be the way they are. I think this is all very evil, and I want to solve problems. Anyway, and so part of that is being strong enough to ironically popularize my size, but ultimately, the most ironic thing is what's going to happen. Anyway, if you're committed to a man, be committed in times of sickness and in health as per Christian marriage traditions. And so all of you are watching, I can read all your minds. And so women will like look at men and like check for bulges and stuff. But then the grower men, which are like a smaller percentage of men, could still be really endowed but like show no significant bulge. So I'm one of those grower guys. Anyway, Usain Bolt is a 6'5" black male sprinter. He's in tight sprinting pants. He doesn't show much bulge. He could be pretty endowed. Could be a grower. Anyway, and so yeah, So Anton 5'7", 8.5 exaggerated to 11. Julio 5'10", 9.5 with a pelvic detachment exaggerated to 14. Myself 6'3.5", 8.5 bone press. I exaggerated to 10 in the past in jest because everything is exaggerated. I should be exaggerating to actually at least 11. All right, I'm 6'3.5", no shoes, no hair on top of my head. All right, then some guy that is shorter than me has been telling people he's 6'5" for years. All right, everything's just exaggerated. All right, anyway. So yeah. Anyway. Yeah. So yeah. Um, so yeah. 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 So yeah. And so yeah. Anyway. So yeah. Yeah. Anyway. So yeah. So there's gonna be thin black guys, thick black guys, thin white guys, thick white guys, and in the U.S. I am right-handed bell curve. Sick me, that's very weak, 1 orgasm, 6 inches or less. Potent me, woman said 4 orgasms. Anyway, so yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'm healthy and potent and present. A bunch of men will now want me to fail. That's what their consciousness is going to be thinking once this video gets uploaded. But the speech is already at 7,000 views where I make true claims about my size. And there's a picture to back up that where I look comparable to break, but obviously slightly less. And then, sick me is going to be nowhere near break because I'm like weak and have ED. But potent me gets to be pretty close to break. So sick me, 1 orgasm, potent me in the past, 4 orgasms. I'm potent at present, I'm healthy and fit. Anyway, the world's evil, men are competitive, women want power over men, everything needs to change. So yeah, all of you are rotten. I'm going to turn a hopeless situation into a happy ending, but to do that, I must be strong. And so this is why I make a video like this. So anyway, I have an OnlyFans. There's this really popular OnlyFans female user who follows me. There's the picture comparing myself and Julio to scale where I look close, and then so on and so forth. Anyway, yeah. So yeah. Yeah. Anyway, true love needs to come back. Everything's very silly. And true love is intellectual and emotional, and so on. Everything's gone very rotten. Sex has been monetized and publicized, and is no longer sacred. Everything's just gone to hell. So anyway, I'll work for my whole life to solve as many problems as I can.